has a new project called Wave that provides coaching through data. He's going to share with us, hi Florian,
hello,
how he's been using Zenaton to build automation for Wave. So I will turn the stage over to you, and in order to share your screen, you just have to click on the screen share icon in front of you.
Awesome. Okay, can you see my presentation now? Hello?
See it?
Yes. Okay, awesome, cool. Yeah, so I'm Florian. I have done a lot of full stack engineering and also backend engineering, and so I really know how hard it is to build a distributed job manager that is idempotent, that can handle scale and everything. So I was very, very excited to use Zenaton to not have those issues to handle. What we do with Wave, so it's quite a specific business. We do exec coaching for startups. We do audit, consulting, and personal coaching. So it's really like a service, but what we do that we are extremely data-driven, so we collect a lot of data about our clients, internal data about how the business runs, type forms, documents, everything. So we have a lot of workflow to collect this data. What we're trying to do, basically, we're trying to scale a service into a product. So we have a lot of workflows to do all the CRM, all the touch points with the clients, like answering to email automatically, picking up calendar appointments, setting up Zoom meetings, sending contract to sign, everything. We want to automate it completely, and it's a lot of workflows to handle. And something specific about us also, we just have a dozen users, not millions of users. So scalability is not the point for us, but really the ability to handle complex workflows in a very simple and expressive way. So if you look at the workflows we have, it looks like this. So we have tons of workflows. And actually, when you try to automate a human service, it's really shitty. You have all those interactions to handle. You can see at the top, we have a timeline we have to follow when we have a new client. We have to request for documents, then send a reminder after 3 days, and then after 7 days, then ask feedback to the employees of the company, all this kind of stuff. So a lot of workflows to handle. And all those workflows, I was able to handle them through Zenaton. So it was pretty awesome. It was a lot of work, but I could really focus on the business logic and not on the back-end issues. So if we look at one of those workflow, the first workflow where we have to sell an audit. So we get, here it's an example, we get an email from a referrer. So a VC, Warren Buffett, referred a new CEO to us, team. So we got an email, and then we have actually a workflow to get it. And then we have a series of tasks that we have to handle to deal with this client. So I have, for example, to go look at the data of this client, make sure we have the right company, the right email address, the right legal registration, etc. After this task is completed, then our coach, Adri, has to send an email to say, hey, thank you for the intro. Here, let's book a slot on my Calendly, etc. And after this task, then the new potential client, Tim, the lead, will have to book a sales call on Calendly. So here, that's an example of our backend CRM, and every step, every progression is done through Zenaton workflow. So if we look at the code for this cell deep dive workflow, it looks like this. It's not actually some, you will not see raw level Zenaton calls and API, because I had to build some classes and logic on top of it, but you can still understand pretty easily what we do. So first, I create a first assignment. It's like a task. And I will wait until this assignment is completed. And then I have logic to send a first reminder to the creator, after a few days to send another one, etc. Once the curation of the client is done, then we will have to make sure that we have a sales call that is booked. So here I define my logic. I say, okay, I will send my first email now. Then I will define a reminder in 7 days and a reminder in 14 days. And then I will send I will start this assignment, and I have a logic to make sure this is done, to create automatically the emails, to send them, and to continue. After this, once the Calendly is booked, I will wait until the sales call, and just before the sales calls, I will send a new notification to our coach so that they can read the company profile before the sales call. And just after the sales call, we will continue, go to the next step, which will be to generate automatically a contract to sign and move on. Okay, and so here it's an example of how it looks in Zenaton. All my tasks and reminders going after each other. Another very important workflow for us is what I call watch emails workflow. So basically, it's a singleton workflow. So I have only one running. And the goal of this workflow is to import all the emails on Gmail into our app. So I don't know if you know Front App, but basically we build our own Front App to do this. And I have to consume all the pub sub from Gmail. So what I do in my workflow, at the beginning, I have to set up all the subscription to Gmail events. And after this, I do an infinite loop. And each time I have new notifications, new pub-sub notifications to handle, I will run my main task, which is to basically fetch, to download all the emails, process them, and save the relevant one into our database. And after this, I do a loop. And of course, in my loop, I wait for a new pub-sub event, and I will just run my next fetch after I get a pub-sub event. And so what was very cool about Zenaton here is that Zenaton allowed me to make sure I have only one singleton workflow running, and that I will never process emails in parallel because I will have a duplication of content, and that will really suck for us. Okay, so that's about all for explaining my use case and how I handle things. Now, I just wanted to share the gotcha I got and what I learned from using Zenaton. I have iterated a lot. The first thing, it seems obvious at the end, but it was not for me at the beginning, that for each task I start as argument and as return values, you should only use IDs, timestamp, or very small data, and not big raw data like big JSON. And you have a few reasons for this. First, for security, it kind of sucks to leak clients' emails or this kind of stuff into another SaaS service like Zenaton. Then for scalability, if you have big JSON that you make go through Zenaton, it could really give a hard time to Zenaton. And also, I decided that I wanted to have my own database, a single source of truth for my state management. So it means that I should be able at every time to have everything in my database and not have important data going through Zenaton, because jobs can be killed, can be restarted, anything like this. And I really like to think as Zenaton as a transient helper, a very powerful one, but still a transient helper. So here also it's basically the same point. I really want to keep my DB as a simple source of truth. And also when I create timelines, so for example, I know I will do one action, then wait 1 week to send another reminder and another one to send a second reminder. I want to store this in my DB so that when I restart my workflow, I can follow the same the same workflow and don't erase no data and don't lose track of what I was doing. I really want my Zenaton workflows to be idempotent if I restart them with the same arguments. And also, one of the amazing things with Zenaton is it's crazy simple to create workflows. So it's like a big hammer, and after this, everything for me looks like nails. And I started creating workflows and sub-workflows and sub-workflows everywhere. It was very fun to do, but it got crazy. I had so many workflows in parallel, and when one workflow would fail, I would not know if it impacted the parent or not, and it really sucked. So I decided to have as few workflows as possible to make them more in series, not in parallel, so that I could control more what was going on. And also to finish the issues, one error I hate with Zenaton is when my workflow time out. And when the time out, I have no idea what happened. If my code went to an infinite loop, if I had networking issue, or if Zenaton was not working well. So pretty frustrating. And also the dashboard lacks a lot of feature to really manage tasks and their parents, if a task failed, if you want to delete the task or delete the parent workflow, like all the management to manage issues in the dashboard is lacking a lot of features. So I would love to have more on this. Okay, that's pretty much about it. I will go back to my face. And yeah, that's what I wanted to share with you today. I love Zenaton. It's really critical for my business logic today because I have so much business logic. And just one thing also that sucks for me is I'm in Python because we do a lot of machine learning, and Zenaton is going more to Node.js. So I will have to see what the impact for me is in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And you're foreshadowing our next segment on announcements. Does anyone have any questions for Florian? And I'll give you a minute. There was thumbs up from Greg.
Greg.
Yeah, and so one question. I know when you started, you had all your processes mapped out, and I'm curious to know once you started using Zenaton, if you changed a lot of the logic and how it changed, or what the impact was on your business logic after you started using Zenaton versus before.
So I was lucky to know about Zenaton before I started coding my new logic. So from the beginning, I knew I would have no limitation in the type of workflows I could use. So I could really stick to my core business logic and my natural workflows and design them the way I wanted so that it would be the best experience for the user. And I knew I would have no issue to put that into computing logic later. So it was pretty reassuring for me.
Nice, and thank you for the feedback. I think something we've realized is everyone who becomes Power Zenaton users uses those, and that was something that wasn't actually envisioned in the beginning. So we're looking at how that can be kind of linked together on the dashboard and make that whole process easier. And honestly, we love your feedback, and other people, if you have suggestions about this and how you're using sub workflows, it was one of those things that sort of grew out of Zenaton usage that surprised and delighted us. Oh, you have a question.
Honestly, I really don't know. I really don't want to build another Zenaton. So I looked at other things. I looked at more like backend infrastructure job managers. But the issue is that they just handle basically queues and some basic retries, like I don't know, what is this from Airflow, stuff like this. But it's not close enough from the code and not enough business logic oriented. So I think I will build some very simple Zenaton and use some cron jobs, but it will suck, honestly.
Cron jobs suck, yes. Thank you. Any other questions? Looks like we might have someone typing. Oh, changed his mind. Oh, there's one.
To give up, I wasn't ready to give up anything. I struggled to implement sub-workflows or logic to restart workflows automatically after any retries or stuff like this. But I don't know if it's really your question. But basically, I was always extremely satisfied by Zenaton. I knew that the API was new, and that, of course, I would be a power user because of some complexity of my workflows. So I really never gave up. I just know I would have some fun to build my own library layer. But we can talk more about this later if this doesn't really answer your question.
I remember one thing you told us a while ago, that you created your own helpers that you reuse in different processes.
Yeah. So first, very simple stuff like just a task to send an event, a task to create a sub workflow. These kind of things didn't exist. And that's why I created some. I don't know if I think I forgot a slide about this in my presentation. But one thing I saw that is very hard with workflow is testing, doing end-to-end testing. And I was able to do something I am actually very proud about. I created a complete end-to-end testing of my workflows. So when I start a normal workflow, in my test case, I start another workflow on the side, which I call a simulate workflow. And each time I have an event coming from my main workflow, for example, the user has to answer a type form, then my test workflow will use the Typeform API or whatever to fill this type form so that I will get the real events to my main workflow. That was a lot of work, but now I press a button and I have a 10-minute workflow that will run step by step and test every step of my workflow. That was something I needed to create a lot of helpers and library for, but super, super helpful. Because testing workflows is really, really hard.
Thank you. There was one over on questions. Amin asked if you unit test workflows or manually test them.
Also, I say I test them. It's not unit test. It's end-to-end test. So I try to have the closest to the real conditions. And of course, there's one thing you cannot really have real is time. So I had to create some helpers to simulate times. So instead of waiting 2 weeks, I would wait 3 seconds. That needed some helpers. But yeah, I tested everything. My workflows I entirely tested.
Neat.
And what do you mean for no-code tools?
Things like Zapier, I think.
Really too basic. You can almost do nothing with it. I have used it in a lot, plugging Airtable to a lot of things in my previous jobs, but here my business logic is really too complex. Of course, you can use Zapier to have your own JS or Python code run, but now that there is Zenaton, I don't see the use of Zapier anymore. Let me look at Tray.
I think it's similar to.
Yes, same thing. I think it can do a lot of things, especially when you're at the beginning. But for us, our CRM is really our core business logic. So it could help us in a few first months, but I would not use Tray.io for my first 2 years of product development.
Do you ever have variables that you would like to pull out of a workflow and have in a configuration layer? A little bit like Amin showed us, the Airtable where they've set that up so they can change variables without having to redeploy and put it into the code.
Oh yeah, I mean a lot of things in the dashboard that I can restart or manually start workflow. That would be awesome because in my backend I have a lot of shitty API endpoints, which is a script start workflow X, script start workflow Y. And yeah, I have this in my prod API, and it's really bad. And I really would love to have a way to start and to edit workflows in the dashboard or through API, of course.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much.